G'day everyone. Well, due to the current situation of everything that's going on at the moment, I'm just going to post a video about the Ruger Precision 338 Lapua. So I'm not going to touch on any of that stuff. That's the reason I'm bored. But anyway, I've just basically written up a quick cons and pros list. Going to run through them. This is the Ruger Precision 338 Lapua. I've been getting a lot of questions about it. It's featured in a few videos obviously, and I'm going to compile all that footage together probably at the start of this video, so you should have already seen that. Maybe I'll do it at the end. Might do it at the end. But it's basically just going to be a kill shot, highlight reel sort of thing. Basically just to show that this thing hits with some authority. So without further ado, I'm going to run through it. So starting up, we've got the cons. My first con at the top of the list is the weight of this rifle. It is, as it sits now with the Atlas 5H bipod and the 7-35 Night Force Attacker scope, it weighs 9.6 kilos. So it's no lightweight stalking gun. It's very heavy, but it is manageable. So my brother and I have both taken this stalking. We've both lugged it through the mountains, through some hilly country and private property, and through some public land, and you know what, it's doable. It's not ideal, it's not designed for it, but if you're thinking that you might run into a long range shot that's needed or something like that, it's doable. Not great, but doable. So 9.6 kilos as it sits now. I don't know the actual weight of the rifle. I'm not going to run through specs or anything like that. There's a million websites and that you could check that out on, but that's the weight of it. Next con I've got is the time to set up. Now basically this sort of falls back into the weight of it as well. It does take a little while to set up. A lot of that's attributed to the weight, to the bipod, the way the Atlas 5H works, getting everything level and getting your cants set up. It is a long range rig, so you've got a big dial scope, so you're going to be getting a range, working out your atmospherics, punching it into a ballistics calculator, your phone, your Kestrel, whether your binos spit that info out for you, like the Leica Gervid HDBs. If you've got something like that, you know, that will cut some time off, but it takes a long time to set up for a shot. You've got to pop your covers on your scope. You've got to load around. I mean, you've got this massive bolt throw to start with, and then get your cant and everything sorted. Ideally run it with a rear bag or a backpack. I use a backpack generally, but you know, that's just personal preference for me because that means I don't have to carry a rear bag, but it does take a long time to set up to shoot, which is why it's sort of the perfect long range setup. Next up on my cons is the cost to run. So my brother and I are running the 285 LDM factories. He's also done some hand loads, but if you're planning on running factory ammunition through a lap, you're looking at between basically $7 to $9 a shot. So a box of 20 is not cheap. Next up, the trigger, another con. This trigger, and my brother has done some work on it, but it is, and it's got the, basically like the Saber Jackie trigger, I don't know what Ruger calls theirs, but, and he's done some work to it and it's better, but it is not nice. When you take up the pressure, it feels like, you know, it's not super heavy, but it just feels cheap. It feels very mass produced, doesn't feel very refined. So the trigger is one of those things on this that, you know, you can tell that it's more of a budget rifle. Next up on my cons is the size, which is, you know, pretty obvious. I mean, I'm 5'10". I'm not the tallest person in the world, but you can sort of see it is a big rifle. So it takes up a lot of room in your car if you're taking it. If you run this in a hard case or even a soft case, it takes up a lot of room. It's long, so if you're planning on doing some sort of walking or stalking with this thing, it's going to hit branches and stuff quite regularly. Storing it, you need a large gun safe to store it because it's so big. My brother has to have the stock folded to fit it in his safe. So, you know, these things just start adding up. It is just a big gun. Next up, I actually don't have it on the list, but I just remembered then, the safety. So it's got the AR type safety here, where you sort of flick this little switch across, and it's okay, but it's very, so, you know, when you're using it, I'm not a fan. It's okay when you sort of get used to it, but I'm not a big fan of it. I would probably rather, you know, some sort of safety on the other side, but that's just what it is. I don't really use safeties very often anyway, and to some people the safety wouldn't bother them, but same thing, it just kind of feels cheap. I think that's about it for the cons, and if I think of any more, I'll probably just spit them out and tell you guys, but for that's about it for now. Next up, we got the pros. So, first pro, this thing hits like Thor's hammer. I've never seen Sam Stags die as quickly as what they have with this rifle and these 285 LDM factories. It's shot quite a few animals, and they definitely know that they've been hit. So I think that's a quite important factor on whatever rifle you're running, is feeling confident that it's going to be a clean, quick, efficient kill. And another thing on that is the accuracy out of this, for what it is very good. We haven't done a stack of groups with it, but I believe the last time we shot at 800 yards, we got about a 5-inch group for 3 shots with the factory ammo. So, you know, it's pretty good accuracy, sub-minute for factory rounds. And, you know, if you're holding a 5-inch group at 800, you're pretty good. It was quite a windy day that day as well. Next pro is the adjustability. So even though that's a bit of a pain, the fact that it takes so long to set up for a shot, it is also a pro in the fact that you can really get comfortable behind this thing. You know, you've got all this adjustability in it. You can, you know, lift up your cheek piece and adjust the length of pull, adjust your height with the bipod. It loads really nice, so when you shoot it, you know, you just feel very, very stable. And that's another thing, due to the weight of it, this thing just sits like crazy on target. I don't know whether anyone's tried to shoot long range with a lightweight sport or anything like that, but it's not easy because the rifle wants to move. Even when you're squeezing the trigger, the rifle wants to sort of, you know, twist off with it. You really need to have it set in your bag and make sure everything's lined up correctly. But with this thing, it allows you to be in some more uncomfortable positions, whether you're prone or sitting or whatever, but it does allow you to be in some more uncomfortable positions and not worry so much about the movement of the rifle affecting the bullet path. So I feel like that's a pretty big pro. Next pro is the price. So I believe these things are about $3,300, $3,500, somewhere around there, Australian. That's just for the bare rifle. But for a chassised 338 Lapua, that's pretty reasonable. You're not really going to beat that, apart from maybe like a Savage or something like that. But I think the price is very fair, considering, well, the accuracy we're getting out of it. And I know these are super popular in the 6.5 Creedmoor because of their accuracy and because of their price point. So it's cool to see, you know, these bigger calibers that we can use on sample legally coming out at a reasonable price point. Next pro is the lack of recoil. I would let my grandma shoot this. It is absolutely brilliant. You know, some people don't like the big side port brakes. This brake for a factory rifle is absolutely brilliant, and I've shot quite a fair few brakes, and I'm not going to mention the name of the brand that I absolutely loathe, but they're a very well respected brake, and I cannot stand them because they just cause concussive gas to hit you in the face and for everyone behind you, and for me, they cause a flinch, they just suck, they cause headaches, and I hate them. So when my brother bought this, it was really nice to have a brake that just, deflects the gas straight out to the side. There's nothing coming back in your face. There's no crazy, I know Mark and Sam after work, their YouTube channel, Mark touched on this the other day, that the level of volume doesn't change with the brake. It just changes the way it's directed. And that was a really good video. If you want to check out a heap about muzzle brakes, definitely check that out. But with this brake, the gas is directed out to the side. So I don't feel too bad having Remy behind me shooting this rifle. Whereas other makes of muzzle brakes, I don't want anyone, I don't even want myself behind the rifle because it's so ear splitting and concussive. Ugh, just makes me shudder thinking about it. But anyway, I'm not going to go too much into that, but this brake is absolutely brilliant, and this thing is very pleasant to shoot. You could, like I say, you could let your grandma shoot this and she's not going to scope herself. She's not going to be smashed by a heap of recoil. And that's also attributed to the weight. Like, it's a heavy gun, so it's going to recoil less, but that brake's very good for what it is. Next up, this was in the cons, but because of the size of it, luckily we have a folding stock, which I can't do there, but so a folding stock. So now it takes up a lot less space. So this is how generally we would travel with this rifle, and how it's also stored, because otherwise it won't fit in the safe. So it is good having that folding stock. It does, and you can carry it slung with the stock folded if you don't want the barrel up hitting branches and anything, if you were to carry this rifle. Personally, when I carry it, I just leave it full length because it takes away some of that setup time that I was also mentioning in the cons. But having the folding stock's very handy, especially for a rifle this size. And the last pro I've got on the list is confidence. This thing, 0 to 200 yards, I feel very confident out to about 800-900 with. We haven't shot game past, I think the longest shot on a deer is like maybe 600. But 600 with this scope and this setup and those projectiles feels, I'm not going to say easy, but I feel very confident taking those shots. I mean, you've got the wind bucking ability of that big heavy projectile. It's quite a high BC bullet. It's going quite a reasonable velocity for the size of it, and it hits deer very hard. And coupled with, with the attacker that tracks just bang on, the glass is very good. The whole setup of the gun being rock stable and steady when you take that shot. Those long shots definitely feel more attainable. They feel a lot easier than they would with something else. So I think confidence is probably one of the most important things about whatever setup you're shooting. If you're confident with it, you're more than likely going to make a better shot. You're not going to flinch. You're not going to stress too much about whether it's sighted or what it's going to do in windy conditions. If you're comfortable and confident with a rifle and with a caliber, then try and stick with it. And that's what this gun's for. It's been our designated long-range rifle. I still use my 7mm quite a bit, but for private property use and for bigger open country, this thing, I like having it in the car because I would much rather take an 800-yard shot with this than with the 7mm. And I've done plenty of practice at 800 with the 7mm, which is, I don't know whether you can really see. You would have seen in my comparison. There's a big comparison between the two rounds there. And this recoils less with this muzzle brake. So I think that's about it. I'm gonna chuck together like I said, a compilation of kill shots now, and you'll see what this hits like. I don't think I need to really touch on anything else, but if you have any questions or want any more info on it, feel free to ask away. Cheers.
Got him. Good job. Nicely done, man. Oh, he's coming out. You're at 600. Woo! Hey! Good job, Graham. Good job.